look at this on Twitch.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna have the chat open.
Well, it certainly would not
Yeah.
hurt, since I'm sure some viewers may have some questions.
How do you spell your Twitch? Is it the same as
Here, I'll
Discord?
give you guys the link.
Lenny OH.
Yep. Lenio in the flesh.
So it is the same. That's what I found it.
All right, so we're now live. We'll just wait some minutes just for people to kind of trickle in, and then we'll get started.
Right.
Sounds like a plan.
So, anyone been up to anything fun this week?
I've been putting together a presentation, and it's very boring.
Ooh, fun.
I don't know. Just lots of Trails games. There was a serious point where I was literally working on like literally 5 Falcom games at the same time.
Jesus Christ.
It was like East 8 and 0 were getting a patch, East 9 and Azure were like preparing for submission, and Reverie and Kuru was spinning up. So it's like, what the heck? Yeah, that's 6. I can't even count. You know what? Exactly.
I'm sure we could toss a Naita in there just for the heck of it.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, well, Night is not really anything I'm involved with yet until it comes back. Well, it's weird. Naota was the last thing I worked on, like as a PC beta tester, and like it released on December 10th, I think.
Yeah, I recall it releasing somewhere on like
It was
around Christmas.
It's a very specific date that I remember because literally the next week I got the job, so I was no longer working on PC beta tests. I was working on whatever the next projects were. I think it was Monarch was the first one.
Right.
And Disgaea 6 complete, which I don't know, is all right. That was a while ago. That feels like forever ago. What the heck?
It sure does.
I feel like that's going to be a theme of this stream because it's like.
Literally all of this happened, and now I've done probably 4 different NAS Classics games, which completely throws off my like that's a lot of games.
It sure is.
Well, do you think about, I don't know, when I was thinking about having to do this stream earlier, I was like, oh god, it's been 3 years since we started working on Azure.
Okay. I hope your memory is good, because I'm gonna be asking you about about everything.
I mean,
it'll come back as we're talking about it.
Sure, absolutely, and I guess in the context of Azure from the fan translation is where I'm hoping to keep and guide the conversation. Is also a lot of it ties back into 0, which was even longer.
This legacy stretches back quite a while.
Oh yeah, don't worry. We'll
December 2016.
Well, earlier, how far you want to track the chronology back?
Oh yeah, there's the whole chronology of who worked on it, but like December 2016 is when I guess the Geofront kind of came about, but I don't know if it really had a name until.
I think it was like a Twitter post from Guan or something.
Yeah, Guan was like, "I gotta take over your fan translation." That was really funny.
No,
I was in the channel that he posted it on a forum.
Name dropped it or something on Twitter or something. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm starting this with Yotaka or something."
Right. Yeah, but like he also like took the classic meme of Osborne taking over the Phantasmal Blaze plan, and he edited it to say like taking over.
I'll be taking over that 0 project of yours. Yeah.
And he like posted it on the Heroes of Legend forum where they were not doing anything with it. So
I do recall that. It was a legendary day indeed. And that was 7 years ago.
Hot dang. Time sure does fly,
Yeah.
huh? Now look at us here with actually official Zero and Azure out now, so we can all play the duology.
It's very weird. I have my Azure LE over on my shelf, and I look at it, and it's just like, I can't believe that's a thing.
Yep, that certainly is a thing. Well, I say we kind of get started now. I'm sure people will be coming in as the stream goes on, but just to get ourselves started, why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
I can go, I guess. I'm Addaberry. I was a tester on Zero, a cleanup editor for the patch, but then an editor on Azure. I also did some graphics here and there.
Hey, Ribose?
Yeah, I'm Ribose. I back in the day, I guess I've worked with Floofy and Guan and Yotako, and they were starting the Geofront project, but like mostly in programming and support. And then we, like, I guess worked on both of the games, and I helped Jose, who was the main programmer on both of them. Mostly on programming, but I also organized things like making sure that the non-scenario stuff all worked, and the graphics were all edited by Sorcerian and stuff, like just get all the text ready, that kind of stuff. So it was just like, I don't know, sort of project coordination, which in a way is kind of what I do now in my real job, so I don't know, it's neat.
Right. So I want to ask you guys about how Geofront started working on Azure, since unlike with Zero, which only had the raw translation to work with, there was already an edited pass of the game, so why did you guys even decide to pick up Azure in the first place if we already had that?
Oh boy, okay. So let's see. I'm gonna go back a little bit before we actually started working on it. So it was, I think it was January of 2020 that the Kai versions got released, or like got announced.
Yeah, something like that.
And that was a kind of an oh shit day where it was what do we do? Where do we go from here? Because it's like, it wasn't announced for localization, and there was, a distinct possibility we didn't get them, just because even, don't trust Falcom's lies. Whatever they say in the media, don't trust Falcom's lies.
Yeah, the media was basically like, hey, we're releasing this such that it gets localized, but nobody believed it.
Right, so it's like, you can't trust that, so it's like, we had been, we missed so many of localization opportunities throughout the years of like all the various re-releases, and oh, maybe it'll come out for Cold Steel 3 or something like that, and that kept not happening. So we had to really sit down on that day in January and be like, okay, do we continue? Do we even do Azure? Because it's like, how long did it take to do Zero?
Like,
right, like
3.5 years.
Something
3
like
years
that.
and 3 months. I think it was from the point of this 2016. However, there was a history before that.
Right, so faced with all of this, it's like, do we continue? And the eventual decision was yes. So April-ish is when editing really started. April 2020 is when things really started getting going. And it was more so it's just we wanted to finish what we started. Our versions of Zero were pretty different than other versions of Zero that had existed at the time. So we wanted to see it through to the end, We ended up using Gurin's original translation rather than the Flame edit, as people commonly refer to it, done by Flamethrower 2. In collaboration with Gurin, of course. It's easier sometimes to go from a more rough translation when you're localizing, just because
right.
You don't have to decode as much stuff. Sometimes you hit a patch where it's just like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but that happens in all sorts of translation efforts.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. So I was gonna ask if the Kaya versions did influence anything in regards to working on Azure, since unlike with Zero, where the chances of those coming out was actually zero, Kai versions gave us a chance to finally see these games localized.
I don't know. I would say it was more of a kick in the butt.
it was something on the mind. Like, there's a reason Azure took, 14 months or whatever compared to Zero's like 3 years. There was a palpable sense of we might miss our chance if we're not, if we're not careful.
We don't complete this now. But at the same time, like, I think that Zero plays a huge part to the story as well. Like, we had already built up, maybe you guys had built up the editing, like, expertise and stuff, but also, the patch already existed for Zero because we, worked on that game, and we could use basically everything from it to try to make Azure's patch much faster.
Right.
Yeah.
So then, I guess I also wanted to ask, so after you guys worked on Zero, did you guys, like, internally change any process on how you guys worked to help speed the process up with Azure?
I guess you could go with the scenario, like, revamp.
Yes,
that was the technical reason.
Spreadsheets got way better between games. Like, it's hard to explain without, like, showing it, but it's the way that, like, boxes would be formatted. So, like, a box of text in the game that you see, the way that it was presented in Zero was, like, each line would be its own cell in an Excel spreadsheet, and then for Azure, that all got thrown out, and it's like a cell is a box, and like the formatting is the same, and all of like the spacing is the same. We can use the right font, so it like what a cell looks like in Google Sheets is what it looks like in game, and that makes it so much easier.
It was something that I was pushing for even back in like 2017, and I was kind of miffed about the way that it was initially formatted with what I called the flame format. It was essentially as you described, but like it was very frustrating from a technical level because we kept running into like box breaks and all this other stuff while fixing Zero, basically, near the end. And I really just wanted to move away from that, and of course we had the opportunity to do so once we were near the end of the Zero project and once we were gearing up to work on Azure.
Right. So I also kind of want to ask, like, so why organize everything in spreadsheets to begin with? Like, is there a technical reason to it? Is that normal in localization?
Short answer, yes, it's very normal. I have heard of a company that does everything in text files, .txt files, like Notepad.
Oh, Lord.
This was about 10 years ago, though. But that's still 2013. So, basically, you need some format to be able to store all of your data in, all your texts and strings and all of the associated functions that go with them. You need all that stored somewhere, somehow, so spreadsheets end up being a very common way of doing it.
Yeah. From a technical perspective, however, like, it seems like, at least in the fan translation space, it's frequently they just, like, edit text files because they don't know what they're doing. But, like, from the very beginning, with what we were working on, this is a huge amount of text. So, we wanted to have a method that conveniently, correctly, and everything else from a technical perspective builds the binary files that the game needs out of spreadsheets and not out of, writing it in a text file, because that would be extremely overwhelming with the amount of text there is here.
Oh gosh, yeah, I can imagine. So, I guess since you're bringing up the amount of text sizes, how big is this game in terms of text?
I'm sure I can look it up.
I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but it's staggering.
Right, since it says like online in the community that this game has like one of the most text heavy in the series, so I'm really curious to know like what the final word count is for this game in total.
I mean, I can get you the file we delivered and tell you how many words it had. If it would scroll.
Oh lord.
Yeah, that was just my window focus. Japanese characters 1,669,000 for just the scenario, not the non-scenario.
Holy crap! So, what is it with non-scenario added into that?
Non-scenario is about 220,000 Japanese characters.
Yeah.
Jeez. So we're looking at what 1.7 million?
The English word count is also in our files. It's 678,000 for that scenario. It's maybe not perfectly accurate because of, of course, what Nisa might have changed or what, like, the counting method was kind of rough for English,
right.
But that's pretty close to what it'll be.
Jeez, that's pretty nuts. And yes, Mystery, this is the PC version of the game, which looks nice and crisp, and all the upgraded graphics, and mwah, chef's kiss. Hats off to
You can also get the same
Durante's.
experience on Nintendo Switch.
Hats off to Durante's team and the team at Nisa for going above and beyond to really make this game shine. Which, I guess I wanted to ask, when you guys were working on the Geofront version, Ribose, if like there was anything that you did on the technical front to help improve the game's visuals.
That's more of what we did with regards to like, I mean, I guess for some context, there were things like this. There were multiple versions of textures that we were pulling from, so. For like the world, for example, we mostly left that alone because Joyoland's version was decently good. I mean, there are definitely things that we did since then with the Nisa version, but it already was good, but we took stuff from other versions for like UI and stuff in the Geofront version, like to try to get the best versions we could at the time. That I feel like that was more like Sorcerian and Scott's view on what they wanted for, UI.
There was a lot of technical things from Zero that, I mean, I think most of the graphic stuff, like, was Jose, right? The anti-aliasing stuff.
Oh, you mean like, yeah, I guess graphics from a presentation performance. Yeah, that was definitely on Jose. He gave us MSAA and a few other things. Oh yeah, like resolution switching that wasn't awful in an external launcher. That was mostly Jose, and I helped make the UI alright in the in-game settings menu and stuff. So those together like makes it a smooth patch that is kind of like the official release too, where you got an in-game settings menu.
Yeah, I noticed that there was a lot of settings in the official version that was kind of taking inspiration from the Geofront, like the little background pop-up music feature. That's such a cool little feature you guys had.
That was a very late edition.
Yeah, it was so late with Zero that like we didn't fix a bug that it doesn't save the setting in Zero, but it does in Azure, and it was too late. It was like the last day. And it was like, oh shit, I can't fix this without uploading a whole new patch.
Well, you do what you can in that situation.
Yeah. I was like, oh well.
But speaking of bugs, I guess I want to ask you, wow, what were like some of the most crazy or funniest bugs that you guys encountered while working on, I guess, both Zero and Azure?
I think there's a lot.
Man. I think the one that stands out for me is I don't remember what Jose did, but something like we got a build and it just broke. It just broke everything visually.
Was that the one
The
where
one that was tweeted.
gosh, I think I remember like Scott uploading a clip of like a scene in chapter 2 where like cars are driving towards Cross Belt, but and the cars were just gone.
It's just the tires.
Yes. Yeah, the tires and like the shadows underneath. Was that the
there
build?
was
yeah.
There was a lot
I'm pretty sure I've shared that internally because it was really funny. I need to find this.
I wish I had more footage of that build actually, because there's like later in the game there is a boss monster whose model was just sideways for some reason. Like it would do all the right animations.
I have that one on hand.
It's just sideways.
That's amazing.
It's probably too spoiler to show.
Yeah, a lot of animated textures were scrolling at like a triple speed. So like computer terminals and things were just zooming.
That is hilarious.
It was.
Yeah, that was also happening. That was like in the like a final area of the game. Like you could, like all of the textures were like that. It was incredible. I have that image for you guys.
An absolute mess. I don't. Rivers, do you know if they got fixed the doll one?
I heard about the doll one from Scott. Could you elaborate on that one? Because that is just a hilarious glitch.
That's actually just a scenario initialization glitch, and it's present in all versions, including Mesa's. Basically, what happens is if you happen to save in a very specific room in a very specific part of the game that happens to have falls on a shelf, and this isn't a side quest that's like optional, and then you don't have access to that room later. So if you go and save there and then close the game and load it again, the dolls will be big. That's the glitch.
That's 3 or 4 size what they regularly are. And we found that because one of our testers just happened to have saved in the room and like at the end of their session and loaded it back up and found it.
Yeah, I saw somewhere somebody posted that bug to the internet, so I know it's still in the Nisa version, but there's like nothing we can do. That would require several rounds of like going back and forth for the most trivial things. Just don't save there. God damn it.
I'm gonna have to save there now just to see this glitch for myself. It just sounds so absurdly hilarious that it just happens.
It actually, one thing that was interesting about Azure in particular versus Zero is that Azure had a lot of bugs. Like in the Japanese version, like in the original versions, there were a lot more bugs than Zero.
Especially in PSP. It seems like PSP was way more buggy than Zero's PSP version. Oh my goodness.
I'm trying to remember exactly how it, like it was like a soft lock where if you like went and started a quest in chapter 2 but then you did part of it but didn't finish it, like you got either locked out of the quest
you got locked out of the oh god, what was it?
Was it the Hayway
thing? I think it was like the other building that you needed to go see. Yeah, it might have been Hayway building.
You got locked out of some building if you did
did something with character in that
specific sequences of things. I found that bug where you can duplicate characters for battles using the like support system.
Oh yeah, I think that one's not a thing. I think that was fixed in PS4 because I can't get it to happen. I tried.
I can't remember if we tried that or not. I know we did. I tested on PSP, so I know that was at least there.
Yeah. I mean, you'd actually be surprised. They fixed a few bugs for PS4. It's just people don't. Fixing things is not news. That's what I've learned from my job.
Yes. It's just, if it's working how it's supposed to work, no one cares. That's how it's supposed to be.
Even if it's like a day 1 patch that fixes all of the bugs, it doesn't matter because the news is that it was broken.
Yeah, everyone loves to rag on stuff that's broken rather than be all like, oh hey, it's fixed now.
Yeah, but like especially aggravating when it's something that's literally fixed by downloading the patch. You know?
Right.
Like, it's already been fixed. You don't need to report it again.
So, as I'm kind of going through the game here, you guys also brought back the good old chess messages that is been a staple in the Sky games, and they also added in Zero. So
yeah, we did that.
Yeah, so because you guys also opened up community chest messages, and you guys probably received like what 2,000, 3,000 submissions. Where do you even begin with sorting out all of those to see which ones come in, and which ones make it into the game, and which ones don't? Like, who reads through all of them?
So that was Scott was very protective of chess messages, and that was his bag, more or less. Where he read all of them. I have a spreadsheet actually in front of me, open right now. Like, it's got like all of them timestamped of when we got them, who they're from, and then like, basically they're all color coded of whether or not we're using them or where we're using them, and it's let's see, there are 2,040 messages in here.
It's a lot.
Plenty of them. But this includes ones that Scott and I wrote, though, which we had to do a lot of, because it turns out a lot of community messages are not very good.
Right. I'm sure I've got my fair share of in there as well, that you're probably like, what the hell was he thinking?
I mean, some are funny, we just can't use them for various reasons, right? Like,
Or even if it's just like that it's repeated, you know, like the same joke for the thousandth time is like,
right.
what's fun?
If we're getting another Ao no Kiseki joke, like Ao as in A-W or O-W, Ao no Kiseki.
Oh, gosh. I can only imagine how much you guys got that.
A lot. And then some
Police
more.
jokes was a famously excessive one. I mean, it's fair from a like simple starting point, but like then you dive into the weeds and it's like, oh yeah, this is a lot.
It's just, do you want 100 chess messages that are just very, very, very similar police jokes?
Right. So then, when you guys were sorting out through all the chess messages, did you guys like also decide internally, like, okay, a number of these chess messages are going to be coming from the Geofront team, so we only have this many slots for the community, or did you just kind of sort that out as you went through all the messages?
The process was like, all right, we've got all of our messages, we've closed submissions, let's sort through how many do we have that are usable, like, we mark them yellow. Are they even usable? Like, would we ever consider using these? Because like we also get plenty of stuff that's offensive and like stuff like that. So it's like, could we even possibly use this? How many do we have? How many chests are in the game? Okay, now we have maybe 100 chests that we can source from the community. How many chests are left? Uh-oh, we still have like 200 chests left.
Oh, gosh.
I think there's like 328 chests or something like that.
Right.
I think 328 sounds about right for having the duplicates, because, hey, that's another aspect to it. Scott was really particular about wanting to use, like, the alternate versions of chests as they are, so you could, like, come back and see the other versions of it in different maps.
Yeah,
right?
to explain a little bit. So, like, say in Crossbell City, if you find a chest in Crossbell City and you can access it during the day message will be different than if you look at it at night.
Oh, really?
They're technically different maps. Like,
really now? Oh, I didn't know that. So daytime and nighttime maps are just considered different in terms of the game?
And so in Zero, yeah, it's complicated. In Zero,
Okay,
the festival
Zero,
maps are also different. In Azure,
Zero,
there's a spoiler-related one that's
night
different.
Maps, but like, I mean, you know how at some point it becomes evening? That's actually part of the day map. So just keeping that in mind, there's often
really
3
confusing.
versions of
Wow.
city maps and 2 versions of non-city maps in Zero.
And then
So
confusingly
like
in
that's
Azure,
true.
in Azure, the rain maps are not different than the non-rain maps for some reason.
Because they could reuse the
Figured it
map,
out.
and yeah.
That's so wild. Why would they kind of do that? I mean, not that you guys would know for sure, but is there any way you could speculate on why that would be the case?
I mean, I think it actually like had a practical purpose, and you especially see it with Zero, and especially you see it with Azure, where you access more night maps in the city. I actually think it's lighting related.
Probably. I mean, I will say it makes it convenient to keep track of when text is happening.
Sure, but like, okay, so there's this little feature that we found during the development on Misa's side of Crossbell, and that's in the PS Vita version. At night, and in some other dungeons, you can see shadows of characters, very much like you see in the third and the other.
Kind of like what's going on screen right now.
Yeah, so PH3 was like, "Hey, let's duplicate that functionality, right?" Okay, so that brings us back to what these are. In the Nista PH3 version, they just had, like, we as the QA team literally went through every map in the game with shadows and gave them light positions. So we didn't use anything from PS Vita except the fact that they had that, right? But anyway, notice something else about the sprites. The sprites change brightness as you walk around the world. As you come closer and farther, the sprites themselves also change lightness. That's not us.
True.
That's in the original PSP release. So I think what they actually did was like affect the lighting of the map and the textures by literally having a duplicate map for all of the map textures to be different, rather than having to, like, I guess, have two copies of all the textures in the PSP maps, where, you know, it's a lot more limited in terms of RAM and stuff.
Right.
I think that's the actual reason, is that they were just trying to avoid, you know, loading times being excessive on that system.
Yeah, no, that would make sense. So
I could finish answering that question a little bit with the chess if you want.
Sure.
So we've got all of our versions. We've got all our community ones. We figured out how many we have left. We've got like 200 more chests to fill. It's like, what the heck do we do with them? Because I don't. Try writing your own chess messages sometime. It's really hard.
Yeah.
Because it's just,
I think it's easy at the start, but then you get to being like, okay, then I've run out of ideas. Now what?
Right. How do you write something new? How do you write something, you know, fun still? It can be really challenging. So part of the effort of filling that was Trails in the Chest, obviously. We reached out to Hatsu, and she was willing to reprise her role, and I think that fills something like 60.
Yeah, 60 chests and a message that introduces it. So 61.
Yeah. So that helped fill a bunch, and then a lot of the rest was just, we gotta fill chests. It's gonna be bad jokes, but we're gonna fill chests. There's a lot of bad puns from me. There definitely was a point where, like, the madness set in, somewhere around
message 169.
Yeah, the final dungeon definitely, that was a lot of take a page out of third and fill it with just encouraging messages, because those are easier to write than jokes sometimes. But it feels good.
Yeah, I think the I think the final chapters ones are incredible. So if you're playing this game, make sure you see those.
Yeah, and then part of the reason we did the team member chests, the, like, messages from the Geofront team. Obviously, we wanted to do it because it was cool, but also it fills some chests. We need to fill some chests.
There's, like, what was it, 6 or 7 of them? Pretty good.
Something like that. And then we had a section of that late in the game that doesn't have chests, and we were like, oh yes, this is a great, like, while we were like, oh yes, this is a cool thematic thing to do, we're also, like, rubbing our hands together. Oh yeah, we got out of writing like 20 chests.
Oh yeah. If you played the third, you know exactly kind of the theme of that area.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That area. Yeah, for sure. That's funny that you guys were also just gonna be like, please just fill up these chests just so we don't have to think of more.
It's a double, like, win.
It's fun, but when you get late in the game and you're like, oh god, I've been at this for like 12 months and we still have chests to fill, it's like, oh, I'm just ready for this to be done. I can't come up with more hinge and boxes and angles, and it's horrible.
Alright. So, actually, you touched up on Hatsu writing the Trails in the Chest Part 2 message. So, in Zero, though, you guys had a message that kind of, sort of, subtly teased about Trails in the Chest Part 2, but when you guys wrote that, did you already have in mind Hatsu writing Trails in the Chest Part 2, or was it just like a one-time joke? And then down the line, it's like, oh, this can actually happen.
There was definitely, I don't think, any plans during Zero to actually do that. A lot of things with Azure were like, what if we just did that? What if we just ask? I don't know. What if we just ask?
I mean, yeah, I really think that one was I feel like that was something that Scott was like, I really want this to happen, so he made that a joke, right? But he didn't ask until we were working on Azure, and then he did, and it happened. So, you know.
Right. And yeah, Stargrasper, just to kind of give a thing about the chest messages. So, in the original Japanese version of these games, they only just say the chest is empty, right?
Correct.
But to my understanding, each chest is empty message is its own unique text that you guys can edit then. And then that's how the whole chest message even became a thing.
It's a little more complicated than that in the back end, but for all intents and purposes, yes.
Yeah, I'm sure on the back end, on the technical side, it's more complicated than that. But essentially, for layman's terms, they're all their own unique editable dialogue.
I would just say that from a fan translation perspective, if you were looking at all 5 games, you would find that all of them always had individual messages. But it wasn't always the case. It's really weird.
And then phishing messages are the same way.
Oh yeah, they're just single strings.
So then, what did they say in the Japanese version? Was it just Lloyd saying like, "Okay,
I can
time
fish
to
you."
fish"?
Yeah, this looks like a good spot for fishing or whatever.
Right.
No, that's the main line.
Yeah.
And then I guess it
I
was
think
like Scott's idea to then just like make them their own unique little quip that Lloyd says.
Yeah, I actually think it was Scott.
I believe
Sounds
so.
like something he said so.
Because
I
we
remember him arguing it.
we were looking at it, I think in Zero or something, and we realized that they were all separate strings, and I was like, oh, huh.
Amazing.
It was our kind of, carrying on of the tradition of having a little fun with the text that just
Here's
shows
a
up all
fun,
the time.
I guess, this behind-the-scenes thing we learned through our fan translation. So in Zero and Azure, there's the debug menu, right? In Zero, you can actually find a copy of the phishing line in the debug menu, and I looked it up in the database, and it's actually Estelle's and not Lloyd's.
Really?
Yeah. That's a fun little tidbit that you might find in Zero and Azure's debug menu if you ever happen to, I guess, mod the game such that you can access them.
There's a lot of fun stuff in the debug menus.
Oh, speaking of that, when I was streaming Zero with Zerker, he mentioned that, like, internally, you guys develop, like, some crazy tools that let you access, like, sort of any point of the game at any time. Was there anything that you guys made similar to that for Azure as well?
Those were just in the game. Those are just the debug.
Yeah,
that's just in the game.
We developed it. If that's what you mean, if you just mean the debug menu, that was there. The problem becomes like whether or not you can access it and whether things work. Well, what we made sure to do with Zero was make sure that the debug menu actually worked, and I think I was the one who translated it.
Yeah,
It's
translated
in the official release too. If you actually look in the files,
translated enough to get around.
Yeah,
It's very, very, very helpful. It does save us oodles of time.
Yeah, lists of maps, lists of areas, but it also has a bunch of other weird stuff that I made sure still works. Hey, you can settle your ports or whatever the heck.
There's in Zero, there's what looks like was it an Azure? It might be an Azure. I don't remember. In one of the games, there's what looks like a cut, pistol shooting mini game.
Oh yeah, that I think is Azure. So the problem, on PSP they actually stripped out the debug menus. So when we were porting this to PC as part of the early parts of Geofront, we were like, oh crap, we don't actually have the debug menus because, you know, like, Flame didn't translate it or work with it at all. And so, like, we had to make our tools actually... First, I had to make Flame's tools actually work with it so that we could translate it the old way, and that required fixing a bunch of crashing because he didn't know about it, and he didn't know the upper codes in there, right? So, like, he didn't know anything about it. So then we made it work once, and then once we were converting our scenario format to the more modern one, I had to do it again and make it actually work with the debug menus again, because so like I had to do this for Zero twice, and then with Azure, like that only existed on PSP, and the Joyland version was only in Chinese, right? So I had to basically like figure out how the debug menus in the Chinese version were like encoded, because they were in some crazy format, like double encoded from like in Chinese GBK, I think they call it, and then Shift AAS or something ridiculous like that, and I had to get Python to tell me what the heck the language was. So that I could then translate it into English. So in the GeoFront Azure patch, that was the first time those menus were seen by anybody. Because in the English-speaking community, nobody knew how to access it. It was all gobbledygook, right?
Oh gosh. Sounds like a wild chaos.
So, like, I don't know, it was really cool to be able to be like, oh yeah, this is just Japanese. And like, show the world that it's just Japanese. It wasn't actually... It wasn't, and there was things like what you find in the debug maps of Azure, like the map from Naida or whatever the heck that the fan community has always talked about.
Right. And by the way, for all the viewers out watching right now, if you guys have any questions for Addaberry and Ribose as well, feel free to ask. Like, you guys are, like, this is, as far as I'm concerned, open. If you guys ever wanted to know anything about fan translations or localization or what goes into this type of work, this is your chance to ask it all.
Oh,
Yeah, we got chat open.
So one thing I want to ask you was, okay, so unlike Zero that had Falcom's own native Japanese PC port to work with, Azure only had Joyland's PC port. And you guys were somehow able to, like, contact them and have them accept PayPal as a method to actually buy the game.
Oh god.
How did that all come about?
I lost so many hours of sleep over this.
that was a heck of a week.
So it was pretty clear. So after we picked up Azure and we knew we were doing it, this was quickly an issue, right? We knew this was going to be a big problem. Because if you can't buy it, like, doing things as close to by the book as we possibly can was the MO, right? So Zero was developed by Joyland and then published by Falcom, and that's why it was on, that's why you could get it on DL site. Obviously that didn't happen because it didn't sell so hot. This was when Falcom was mostly pulling out of PC development stuff. So it was me and Scott, and then whoever else happened to come in. Rivos was in a few times. I know Shanji and others were in a few times. It was just us going down, like, searching around on the Chinese internet, seeing if there was any way you could just buy this stupid thing. Is there anywhere that will let you buy it? And spent a lot of time. I did a lot of research about WeChat and Alipay and other payment processing things. China probably has all of my credit card information now.
Well, you just gotta wait, what, 4 or 5 years, and then I'm sure that'll all expire.
It was a lot of searching, a lot of, like, dead ends. We would find a place that looks promising, and then, like, they said they had keys, and then we would try to buy it for, like, 99 cents, and then we'd get an email back in half, you know, comparable English of, like, comprehensible English of, like, we don't sell that anymore, sorry.
Gosh.
And that went on for months. And then at some point, we had some folks that we had on. We had some folks that spoke or could write good enough Chinese, and we emailed Joyoland ourselves at some point because we were just like, I don't know, what do we do? Like, can we ask them? I think we also emailed Falcom in Japanese and asked them if they knew anything we could do to get it working. I think we had like a cover story of something to the extent of like, I recently moved to Japan, but I only speak Chinese, or like I speak Chinese too, or something. And is there any way I can buy this game? And they're like,
I didn't hear about this. What was the response?
Did you guys get a response?
We did, and they were like, "That's Joyoland's problem. Sorry."
That's hilarious.
That's actually crazy.
So
And I guess they would respond, yeah.
It was nice. We thought we were 90% sure we were gonna get ghosted. Joyoland ghosted us. They did not email us back. I also am not entirely sure if Joyoland's a real company or not anymore.
True.
When we were doing this research, it's like the website barely loaded. They hadn't developed anything in years. They kind of maybe got in trouble when they put Zero and Azure on Steam Greenlight back in the day. Unclear, because it's like. So we're not even sure if it's a real company. I can't find, like, I did some sleuthing on like Weibo and stuff like that, which is like Chinese Reddit essentially. Like, I can't find jack diddly shit for them. Like, I don't know if this is a company anymore. And then I don't remember how did we get in contact with Pockle? Do you remember? I think we might have like put out a thing on, I think maybe Zerker or Scott put something on Twitter of like, if you know how to, if you speak Chinese or live in China or something, like, I don't remember. Basically, we got in contact with someone who was willing to call Joyoland for us on the phone. In Chinese.
Where did you guys find that number then? If you couldn't find Diddly Squad on the company itself.
Well, like, their website's still up. They have a phone number on there, but it's like none of us speak Chinese. What are we supposed to like? What are we supposed to do with that? It's like, I don't know if anyone's gonna pick up anyway. But this guy Pockle called Joyoland for us, and like a couple of phone calls later, after we explained that, hey, if you add PayPal functionality, it's possible that we might you might have some money coming your way. And that happened.
So we did.
That did happen. It was a month's worth of effort, like months and months, because we started on it pretty much in April, and we didn't get that working until whenever we posted that article.
Like June or something, I think.
Something like that.
It was like the end of June, which is also kind of weird, like timing wise, because I don't know, we kind of got contacted a little later for the whole like Nisa stuff.
Right. It was very weird
to. What?
It was very weird to have like gotten all this squared away, and then Nisa contacted us not that long after.
Wow.
Or we'd kind of been in talking with them a little bit, but like it was a mess. It was an absolute mess.
That is a lot of effort that you guys went through.
And now it doesn't matter. You can just buy it on Steam.
Hey,
as God intended.
EGS.
So I guess that also leads me into another question I wanted to ask. So, I mean, also, unlike with Zero, which didn't have any sort of news about the Kai versions, at some point, Crossbell Kai came to Steam thanks to Cloud Leopard Entertainment. I can't remember when exactly that happened, but like when that happened, but when that happened, like, was the chances of being able to use their version for your patch like ever on the table, or like you guys already have the deal with Nisa set and they were like...
I believe we already knew we were working with Nisa at that point, which is why all of our official communication around, like, if you go back and like, there's several times we talk about like, oh, we don't want to have to restart and redo everything for this different version. We're just gonna stick with what we have. Everyone wants to move on, which was a little bit, I think, not true.
I mean, the timing is wrong for that. Clouded Leopard version comes out on December 22nd of 2021, which is months after the announcement.
Oh, right. Okay.
Like, the announcement's in June of 2021, right? Wasn't it?
I don't remember.
Oh god, no, it's
I think you're-
2022. When the heck was the announcement? Yeah, no, it was 2021. Because, yeah. Yeah, June of 2021 was when, like, the 4 games were announced by Nisa, right? So, like, that's literally 6 months later is when CLE's version comes out, so, like, it didn't really matter in the
Right. Okay.
process, of
Right.
what we were
Okay.
doing.
Yeah, that would make sense.
I remember people asking about it. We
People
pretty much
asked
waved it
us,
off.
and we were just like, nah.
Yeah.
But especially because by the time it came out, you know, it was a little late. Who cares? We
Right.
couldn't really have our
Right,
own
yes,
patch anyway.
that's what
If
it
somebody
was.
wants to do that, then
Their thing had been
can,
announced. That's what it was, and people kept asking. That's what. Okay, yeah.
Right. So then when you guys had to deal with Nisa, because Zero had a little bit of new stuff in it, mainly just related to Ken and Nana being NPCs, but Azure has still some new stuff in it, like being able to talk with Yuna and having Toa show up for the trade conference. So, like, did all of that new text, was that all also translated by you guys, or was that, like, handled by Nisa?
I don't entirely know exactly what went on with that, because when we were working on our version, obviously we didn't have access to any of that text. I know it was a side project with Scott. Scott kind of spearheaded that effort, and we didn't really ever see. Like, I never saw any of that text myself.
it's in the delivery. If
I
you
know.
Look in.
I know it's in there. I never.
Basically, all I did was
he did
make
it
sure
all
that.
himself.
Yeah, he got me to like just decompile the like text and organize it, so I did. Like, it's basic, and I think he also worked with Graver or something. I don't know.
Yeah, there was
doing the same thing, but yeah.
There was some poking
Zero.
around at the Kai versions, I know, at the time to make sure we had all the text.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was probably edited just the same as the rest of the text for Nisa's version.
Right, I don't know exactly how
was
much
retained.
Right, I have no idea what got changed.
Yeah. That said, it really was only like 200 lines in each game. It wasn't a lot.
It was not a lot.
Right. So that essentially, if you guys didn't do any work on it, that was mainly just kind of Scott doing it on his own, right?
Yeah,
but
for the most
I don't know.
part.
I would say it's Geofront enough.
I mean,
because we've got like our tools together for it, but you know.
In the grand scheme, like I know people are excited about it, but in the grand scheme of the project, it's like such a footnote. Like, it's such a little thing.
Yeah, yeah. Given how many lines it is and stuff. Hey, if they used they used Scott's text, sure, whatever. You know, like.
Right.
Like they use this text for a lot of the game, so yeah, whatever.
Yeah. So one thing that I'm very curious about that you could probably shed some light on, Addaberry, is when I was talking with Zerker about working on about you guys' work on Zero, he said that your spreadsheets were organized by locations. So I'm wondering, is that just like a standard practice in localization in general, or is that just a Falcom thing of handling things?
It really depends on the company, but this is everything Falcom that I've touched has worked like this, more or less, where it's location based. So at like the top of the, so you'll have, say, Crossbell City, Central Square. Like at the top of the sheet, you'll have like any interactables of like, oh, there's a lever here, pull the switch, or like chest to open or something like that. Where that's where the chest messages would be. And then it's reverse chronological order down the sheet. So all the stuff at the end of the game is at the top, and then all the stuff at the beginning is at the bottom.
Right.
And it's all by location.
So like, but
like,
so I guess it kind of.
You gotta remember.
Yeah, go ahead.
That what we're seeing from the fan translation perspective is a binary file that's been decompiled, right? So like they had a certain format to it in the files that is in fact location based, but like I think some strings get like moved around by them doing the compilation. Like I think it's in order. But anyway, the point is, yes, it is location based, and it always is for Falcon games. And like they tend to make it based on the map itself, which is a location.
I think it gets a little more complicated in later games, like Cold Steel 3 and onward, maybe, where they start having character files. But I'm not super familiar with how
the
that
TK
works.
files.
Yeah.
That starts in Cold Steel 1. I think it essentially is a way for them to allow the game engine to have characters that can travel. Essentially, one of the primary problems with something like Crossbows, especially, is the NPCs are all tied to a map, right? So if you see someone like Chiruru going to multiple maps, there's just a complete copy of their events in each place that's just detached from that character. You just have to, from a fan translation perspective, you have to know that it's attached to this character. But like from the official like files, it does say that it's attached to the same character, but it's still a copy of that sprite and all the information related to it, right? And then in Cold Steel, they're like, you know what? Screw that. Let's just make it, a little bit saner for characters that move around a lot. Like if you see Anton in Cold Steel 1 and later, and you just see him walking around in different maps, he'll still be the same NPC in the TK files. So they could make it a little simpler. That's, I think, what their goal was there.
Right. So then, I guess in that case, when you do have a character like Jiriru who's just like moving around all over the place, how do you find out at what point in the game her dialogue is in? Like Jiriru's text in Chapter 2 versus Chapter 3, if everything is organized by location
In
instead.
fan translation,
Play the game a lot.
yes, play the game.
There was so many times in the game where, so one of my favorites, I believe it's jail or something. It's the guy who stands outside the jail. He's like all the way back in this nook and cranny. You'll never ever go back there and talk to this dude because it's really easy to forget he exists. But he has like a line of dialogue at some point that's like, "What was that noise?" And he's over on West Crossbow Highway-ish adjacent, and it's like, if you think about things in Azure that potentially make noise that he would be close to, it's like there are like 4 or 5 different big events that he could possibly be referring to.
Right.
And it's like, you want to, it's helpful. You don't necessarily have to know exactly what he's talking about, but it is generally better to know what people are talking about when they say stuff like this, because you can write better text if you know what they're referring to.
Right.
So it's like, all right, we're just gonna boot the game and try to figure out where this is. We'll just have to go boot different states of the game, run over to this guy and talk to him and see what he says at different points in the game.
So then I guess that kind of also applies with like being able to specify which chest is in the exact spot that you want for a certain chest message, like the chest that clips through the grass.
Thankfully, with there is some testing to be done with that for sure, but it is nice that like generally you don't have that many chests on each map.
Maybe a maximum of 6 per map, so like you can figure out which one is which. But like for the most part, it's like 2 or 3, and it's like, all right, well, I know that these are on this map, therefore they'll be close to the water or whatever, so you can make the water joke, Or that's the other thing. Chests have a item attached, so you can identify what I think that's what I did. I went through all of the sheets and
that is really good.
And labeled all of their items, so you know by map and what items in it. So you could be like, okay, make a joke about the item that's in it or whatever,
Right. Yeah, that would make sense. I would have figured that you guys would have just gone like, okay, just put in numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you guys go in the game and you see, okay, this is chest number 2, so we want this dialogue in this one instead, or something along those lines. But attaching
since there's only like 6
helpful.
in a map, and like, hey, is there a which one has the Tira bomb in it? Like, okay, that one's the one that's close to this wall.
Right.
And then you know where to put it.
But it is definitely an iterative process where we made plenty of mistakes along the way that had to be fixed.
Right. Where do you guys remember like any just hilarious mistakes that you made in editing where it's like you thought that like this dialogue is referring to one thing and then you go in the game and you're like, oh, this is like a completely different character. And the dialogue just looks hilariously out of place.
If you're say editing at 3 a.m. and you're not paying a ton of attention, it is possible that you like start editing for like the wrong character voices onto the wrong character if you're not paying a ton of attention. So it's like there's some point in Zero when we were testing it, there was a point where it was kind of like everyone's dialogue got shifted a box. So it would be like Tio's voice coming out of Ellie's character and Randy coming out of Ellie.
Exasperated by the whole like old sheet format where it was a pain in the ass to deal with the lines in the rows.
Right. So actually, we got a question from Big Clingy here, who's asking if dialogue choices were stored in maybe in a different parts of the script or like in the spreadsheets from their context.
Not generally. They were just in line.
Correct. I'm trying to think. Like, everything was mostly where you'd expect it to be. Some of the UI hung out in weird places on the EXE stuff.
Oh yeah, that was more like, I guess what I and Jose were dealing with was making sure that the EXE strings all worked and things, replaced the right things. I don't know. There were some weird stuff sometimes when things went wrong.
There were just sometimes if you had two NPCs talking to each other, things could get a little weird formatting wise.
Oh yeah, the whole like double events. Like, what was the Tamil and something near the church, near the cathedral?
The what?
The characters that are named like starting with a T, like the twins or something. That are the same name but one letter different.
Oh, gosh, I cannot remember for the life of me what their names are. But yes, sometimes like if two NPCs are talking to each other, it's hard to tell who's talking first because it's technically different. Like if you talk to like
if you talk to A versus B.
Darn it. Yeah, it's like if you talk to them, like they'll say things in a different order, or sometimes not at all, and they'll have different like every character, every NPC has if you talk to them for a second time, they have different text. So that gets really squirrely when you have two characters talking to each other too. Because sometimes they'll respond to each other in the second text, and sometimes they won't. And it's like you just kind of have to sift your way through those.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh gosh, yeah. So I guess NPCs also like Pruna and Lena Lee, who are just like hanging out in.
That's what I was hanging. That was what I was
Pruna
hunting
and
for.
Lena Lee in front of the.
I'm guessing like editing those two specifically, who are like always talking to each other, was kind of just like a bit of a.
I color coded everything at some point. I think I color coded and numbered it because I was like, I'm sick of this being annoying.
Yeah, that's the same. I feel like the other like crazy one with Zero at least was when you go see Yona in the Geofront B like 26 times throughout the game.
Yeah.
Which is which? When does this conversation start and end?
Oh god! Oh yeah, because since you guys would have all seen it, it's all just listed under Geofront B sector, so you would have no idea what chapter he's actually in.
All lives on one map in order.
I had to go back, before like Scott and Ada really is. I was working with Zerker, and he wanted me to like basically label where all the conversations started, because I was like, "What's going on?"
Gosh, that sounds like a
where did it start?
Time.
One thing I will say, like, one thing about fans translating specifically is it is so nice that this was an option for us, that you could go back and look at these things in the game. It is very true of a lot of translating that you generally don't get to see whatever the heck you're working on. If you're working on if you're doing online games, especially, you don't generally get the chance to do this. You kind of just have to. You get maybe like a string of context, or you can ask the developers for help. Like,
Right.
I don't.
Just like, help.
I know certain. I think it's like. And even I think it's light novel translations don't generally have that luxury of even being able to talk to the original author. So it's like
That's insane.
if you get so it's like I give
At least with the light novel, it's the text is all that you're translating, right? Like what else? There's no
it's context.
surrounding context, right?
Context is like, but no, it's like, okay, why did
Yeah, of course, obviously.
why did character X call character Y this instead of this in this scene? Is it foreshadowing for this, or this, or is it just they felt like it?
Yeah. Obviously, those kind of questions versus context-sensitive lines in a video game where there is a visual that you just don't see or have access to, you know?
Yeah. And yes, lady, live service online games, same thing in my head. I've spoken to people who work in live service, and that you often don't get builds.
Oh lord, yeah.
Or you get builds and it's like, oh, I have months between builds or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, at least a little bit in packaged games you get like the QA is going to catch those kind of like issues where things didn't get tested, but you know, it's still gonna be like, oh my god, I wish all translation was able to always have context.
There's, I think, a lot of editing to YouTube video footage out there for Japanese games.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have noticed that. I asked something of a translator in my job, and they just like pull up a YouTube video that they had, and it's like, oh, yeah, you're right.
So I guess in terms of like editing some of this game's dialogue, obviously when Falcom was originally writing this game, they had not yet made Cold Steel, so they just kind of wrote their plot as is. But since you guys are working on this, we already had like pretty much like all of Cold Steel out at that point. So did hindsight about what happens in like Cold Steel, and heck, maybe even in Reverie, since like you guys were still working on that when Reverie came out in Japan, did like hindsight of future games help you, I guess, influence your editing decisions in the dialogue with this one? And like, kind of tie things together maybe a bit nicer, or being able to like set up some foreshadowing that happens in future games?
I'll start with the more boring answer of, we had to like cross-check a lot for future games for style stuff, so it's easy to forget about, but it's like the end of Cold Steel 2 is where all of the SSS got named. Like stuff like that, you have to be very careful to see what details of what have been talked about.
Yeah, and that's really where Trails of the Database comes in.
Right, so beyond that more boring answer of just needing to make sure everything is consistent and we're not talking about, like, we have the same Japanese terms and we're not cross-checking them properly, which there were times that we would, like, later into the game be like, oh, well, this was a term, we gotta go fix this.
Oh, I think there's another aspect to this, right? Trails of Cold Steel 3 was coming out right as we were finishing 0, and Trails of Cold Steel 4 was coming out right as we were finishing up Azure. So both of those releases kind of influenced us greatly, I guess.
I mean, Scott marathoned through his preview copy of Cold Steel 4 in like a week. So we could make sure that we had, like, I was taking notes while he was doing it, so we could make sure that we had everything as accurate as we could.
Right, yeah, since at that point, like, you were getting officially localized terms for Crossbelt, like some of Randy's nicknames and like some of the other districts in the city and whatnot.
Oh yeah,
we had to go back
I'm so happy that with their decisions for the like districts in Crossbelt, like holy crap, I did not like the ones we had, and I'm glad that CS4 named them well.
Well, I guess that was
kind of
gonna.
thing.
I guess I was gonna
Those
answer.
kind of scenario things really are my thing.
Right.
I had a little bit more because that was the boring answer. The more, I guess, exciting answer is there are some things that don't make sense if you read Azure and then play Cold Steel. If you play it in Japanese, where it's like timeline things don't line up.
Right.
Oh yeah, I feel like many gaskets were fried or whatever the heck it's called about timeline issues.
They
And
just
it's like
didn't quite plan everything super carefully, or like have all the calendar things figured out. A lot of like Zero and Azure is like retroactively dated by Cold Steel, so it's like, you know, like an event would happen in Crossbell and it would end up in like a Cold Steel newspaper, and that's how we know when this date happened and things like that.
Right.
So that makes things complicated, and there are a lot of things that didn't work. Or like characters would be like, "Oh, it has been X amount of time since I last saw you," but it's like we know from future games that this isn't true. So
yeah,
there.
I think that like we the editing, well, not maybe not we, but like the editing definitely cared about that a lot. But I think at the same time, like there was a lot of things that did line up, you know. So it was nice to be able to get things, I guess, squared away through seeing these localizations.
Obviously, it's not like all wrong or anything like that, but the things that stand out in my memory are the things that are wrong. There were some very important things that didn't make any sense, though. There was some. The effort was to make it as coherent as possible. So, it could be argued that the translations are slightly more correct than Falcom's own work.
Interesting.
Yeah. But
you know, just for the super fans who have their calendars out and are cross-checking everything.
I can actually imagine.
I'm sure everybody with their calendar out will be happy with it.
It will not affect. It will not affect, you know, the average play experience, but this was made by crazy people for crazy people.
That is probably the most true sentence I've ever heard.
That's a good way to put it. Holy crap. And, like, so there's this random thing that we got a bug report for during the process of Azure QA. Like, absolutely crazy random detail. Like, that I remember us arguing about in Geofront because there were actually 7 seats in the car instead of 8 or something.
Yes. Oh, God.
Gosh.
And we got a bug report for this. It's like, oh no. And so I showed it to, like, look, and they rejected it. So it stayed. It stayed in our way.
That's hilarious. I guess then I have to ask, like, what were some of the crazy arguments that you guys had amongst yourselves? Like, sort out the tiniest of details.
Everything.
781 was probably one of them. Just like, there are 7 seats and they're talking about 7 people. Why did they say 8? It was literally a complaint.
We argued about a lot of stuff. Some of the things in Azure's final dungeon were a big point of argument of what to call certain things. It's just like some of the
links of the domains and stuff and the names
later than that. Yeah, I'm trying to not spoil things, but there were some names where it's like this takes a lot of interpretation of like what Falcom probably meant, because it's like what they wrote and what they mean are not always the same things. So you kind of
like more of the character moments.
No. I'm talking about like the world of Iron and stuff like that. Or the farthest end stuff.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Whatever they call it, the road up too farthest. I don't know.
The path to farthest. Yeah, I don't know. So it's like, what does this mean? Does it mean anything important, or is it just a cool name?
Oh yeah. I definitely remember that farthest argument, and it spanned months, I think.
Something like that.
So we settled on something.
Right.
Eventually, like, it's definitely. It's a process. You go through a lot of points of
if you look at something like that, it also affects, how it relates to the soundtrack, how it relates to the, intent of the scenes,
Right.
the final chapter name, like all this ties together in some way.
So it's a big balancing act, and you go through a lot of phases of we have our simple answer, we've got like we're being a little more interpretive of what this probably means, but maybe not. And then we got our cool out there answer, and we're trying to like balance all of these things together, and eventually you kind of end up with a keep it simple, stupid answer.
Right. So I guess especially with a series like this, where you have no idea when something might be referenced, God knows when down the line, and it turns out to be super important.
Yeah.
Some of these decisions actually matter.
The answer is always Reverie, by the way.
Yeah.
Yes. Reverie.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my god. I am so happy with the way that they've taken our I guess our choices, mostly the editor's choices, and used them in the official product, and then of course have to reference it, It's like this thing is now canon,
Oh yeah,
it's just a really cool thing to see.
For there was a good solid week or two where me and Scott were duking it out on chapter names.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, chapter names were really good. I think there was exactly one that changed between two games.
Yeah, and I noticed I had left that was
and the one that got changed was the one that we had the longest argument about that really didn't matter.
It didn't,
honestly.
but I did like that they I know they read my notes because the direction they ended up with was something I talked about in my notes of something we considered, so I was happy to see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I'm not bashing them or anything for it. I'm simply just saying I think it's
fine. It was a good chapter.
that they were able to use everything that we shared with them on that. So, this is a process.
Yeah, one really big chaotic process indeed.
Yeah. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, you can finish up, and then I'll ask my next question to follow up on that.
It's any project where you have a bunch of people coming together with different opinions of how things should be done, who are all, in our case, maybe too passionate. It leads to buddings of
heads. Summarize it. That's a I guess we could say mild way of putting it. But yeah, in the end of the day, it was a lot of passion and a lot of very sometimes strongly differing opinions, but mostly I think a lot of people had the same outcome in mind. They wanted something that fit with the series and fit with the scenes and fit with the game,
In the end, I think we ended up with something that everyone was proud of, so...
Right. Yeah. I mean, as long as you guys were happy with your work, that's all you could really ask for.
Yeah. And even so much as them changing it, I'm still proud of, the patch that we made,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I probably won't be able to go back and read most of the stuff for quite a while, because it's if you ever, drawn or written anything, looking at your past work is so painful.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Dude,
yeah. I don't want to look at any of the code for the cross-spell DLLs at all, but hey, the text is fine because I didn't edit most of it. It is cool to see, things like the non-scenario that survived from what I had worked on back with Zero. Holy crap! All of these random things that I came up with, are just still in there, even in Azure, and I guess future games.
Yeah, as we were doing this, I have the stream open, and it's Arios uses a craft that I named. Yeah, that's so weird.
Right. So well, I guess I could follow up on that. So I know that you, Ada, you wrote a lot of non-scenario stuff, monster descriptions and.
Oh, he was big in the monster descriptions.
Yes.
Yeah, that was my bag.
So, because that's something that could be more on the dry side, were there ever times where you just kind of wanted to spice it up a little bit just to kind of make it a little bit more fun. Like, I know one of the monster descriptions that just lives with me forever is like, the boys are back for like the tomato-looking monsters.
Oh my god, I have reposted that so many times because it's so good. I found it in the initial release, and I'm just like, the boys are really missing. I'm just like yelling at everybody in the QA team who has like no idea. Like, what?
So, my philosophy. So, it's hard. So, monster descriptions are some of the most limited text in the game because it is 4 lines of 24 characters. And that is not a lot of space to convey a lot of detailed information. So my goal was I would break it down like this. It's like if it had text that was about like the function of the enemy, like can it poison you or petrify you or something like that, they would often like, this fish-like monster has petrifying breath or something like that. And it's like I wanted to make sure that always stayed. And then it would be any text about visual descriptions. I would, I'd keep things that were interesting out of that. So, and then if I had any room left over in my like barely any space, then I would maybe have a little bit more fun with it. There were certain monsters that are more prime vessels to have a little bit more fun with.
The boys.
The boys are
back.
The boys will always live with me,
as Big Queenie is referencing the blade banana. And, there's I think a habanarian at some point that may or may not have funny text. There were some various fun ones. I more or less went pretty dry on them, I would say, not because. I don't know. Some of it was some of the first text I ever edited, like, period, and I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
So that definitely has part of it, but then part of it is also there's just no space.
Yeah, that's fair.
I do know that, like, you consulted with Shanji a lot on, like, specific meanings of things.
Yeah.
So
names
that
of
you can get the
monsters.
names down, yeah.
Names of monsters is challenging, because it's like, they could be referencing anything. I know I got a few of them wrong, where it was like they were referencing a German thing I didn't know about. Yeah, no, it's a process. And it's also hard because it's like, monsters, no one reads these. No one reads the monster descriptions.
I read the boys!
Hey, you know what's even harder about it? Like, we don't really have a good database, so like referencing the third or FC or SC, we just had to know. And like it was always about oh god, I had to make sure that like all of those were right when I was like trying to help you guys with that,
Yeah, you had given me dumps of the English and Japanese for
yeah, and those are terrible dumps. They were just
they worked.
Raw text that you could control F in. Like that's like all the requirement was, because that is just like good lord.
So if I wanted to check to see if a monster was returning and I didn't recognize it, I would take like their name or one of their crafts maybe, and I would have to go and I would control F it in like 3 different text files to see if I got a hit, and that doesn't even cover any of the Cold Steel games.
Oh god.
Yeah, Cold Steel was I never really got a good like reverse engineering system down for Cold Steel, which would have been nice.
It was a little bit of referencing the Kiseki wiki. I replayed a bunch of
Hey, did you know that like
games.
most of 2023 though, like Kiseki Wiki has all the monsters for like all the games? It's just like, oh. I wish I had that.
Yeah.
Because I've already been like, hey, look, this thing is in, the third and CS1, and we're referencing it again in Reverie, so I've already forwarded things like that because I found them.
I wanted to make sure crafts were the same with characters in Cold Steel 3, So I literally sat in a boss fight for like an hour just trying to get this character to use one of their crafts so I could make sure the Japanese was the same.
God.
Oh gosh.
Because it's like, no one documents this stuff, even in Japanese. Like, I tried, I looked,
Yeah, I
it's not
noticed-
there.
Yeah, fun fact with Japanese, I noticed that they like changed the spelling between Sky and Cold Steel on one of the monsters, like between one kind of like
Yeah.
the V sound and the B sound. Like they just forgot or something. It's like this is your own monster. You know what the model looks like. What are you doing?
There was a monster in English that was named differently between, I want to say, SC and third, so we had to pick a spelling for that. Like, it's just, this is not a side of the game that like anyone cares about that much. Like, no one documents any of this stuff. No one has it all written down. So it's like, I'm very possibly the most knowledgeable person on Earth about Kiseki monsters. At least I was for a time.
A title that you can wear with honor, I guess.
That is something that I should like suggest to the like Trails in the Database guys. Hey, can we have a monster database? Okay, thanks.
It would make it so much easier. And I mean, this goes for all the item stuff too. Like, I did a lot of opening
Items
Cold
are
Steel.
easier, I'd say.
I did a lot of opening Cold Steel 1 and 3rd to check certain items.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think items are easier because like they're all in one file, so you, like, and the format's a little bit easier to deal with. But still, yeah, it's the same process.
Well, one other question I want to ask you guys, well, just kind of circling back to, I guess, having official localizations to match to. Did you ever feel that maybe that limited you in some ways? Like you thought, like, oh man, I really liked the decision I had, but now I have to match to what Nisa did in Cold Steel 4 or whatever.
I mean, there was definitely some whining about like Randy's nicknames. We got pretty attached to, so you know, I generally I don't.
I think like in general that was the case. Like there were things we chose, and then they chose something different because they didn't talk to us, you know. But like that's not like anybody's fault, and.
Right.
So there's definitely some bemoaning at the time, but it obviously it doesn't really matter. Like I don't think there was anything super egregious, or if there was, we sent them messages about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh man, there's still
I
so
think
much of
I think Andy's nicknames ended up pretty good. It's just oh well. I really liked T, and that was my choice. Freaking Zero. I don't know if you know this.
I remember when I first came on to test Zero, I think T was still in the game.
Oh right.
I mean,
yeah,
I
nickname.
think that was still in the game until CS3's released right around the end of our Zero testing because there wasn't canon before, right? So like, there wasn't any English version to go by.
The version of Zero that I tested is such a different game than what came out eventually.
It's always cool just how that process though just kind of changes as you go. Like, wow, there was a version where things were so different.
It was a learning process for everyone involved.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think if we knew what we were doing and if we had all the experience we had going in, it would probably be faster and more efficient and less editing passes and all that stuff.
If we had done Zero
less
again,
programming passes.
If we had done Zero again, I think it would be pretty different and probably a bit better. I just, figuring out on the go. And again, it's like a lot of this, like, I don't know. None of us had ever edited anything before. Barely any of us were writers. Like,
oh yeah, we turned Zucker into a writer. Like he was in computer science, and now he's in law school or something.
I was a manager at the Michaels when I started editing Azure.
I don't know
very weird.
at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess that's a question that just popped in my mind is if being able to work on Zero and Azure gave you guys I guess, opportunities to do this stuff professionally, which I know it worked out for you, Addaberry.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite the portfolio piece, right? It's a lot of text. It's pretty prestigious as it goes. You know, the story of the fan translation to professional localization pipeline carries some weight. I mean, I got a job off of it editing somewhere else for a studio I'm not going to name at the moment, but yeah, no, I mean, it worked out. It's hard to get experience, you know, in this field. Some of the people I work with, like, had never edited games at all. So, like, even me with even this just experience, I already feel like a step ahead of some of my peers. So, it just, you know, it's a hard field to get into, and it is a hard field to gain experience in. So it's like, if you're going to, like, if you want to gain experience, the way to do it is to do it, right? And this is doing it, even if it's maybe not necessarily with the same stipulations and deadlines and whatnot that you would get with professional.
I mean, hey, you don't translate 1.6 million Japanese characters, I guess.
You will learn things.
You
will. No, I mean, I had no idea, like, I had no inkling in my mind ever while working on Azure that this was ever going to be a career. Not even a you know, minuscule amount. I didn't even think I could write. I didn't think I was going to be doing any scenario editing when I joined the project either. So I was just going to do item descriptions and stuff and then go back to testing or whatever.
Right.
We just had a need for more people to help out.
Need for speed.
Yep. And I was there at that time. It was so much of me working on this at all was just one weird circumstance to another. So
I can relate so much. I feel like that's how I got the career that I'm in right now as well. Just, hey, you were around at the right time, the right place, and you're the right people, and then to another.
Right time and right place. That is really like everything. It feels like it shouldn't be, and it feels like, I mean, it feels like it shouldn't be, but it's just like I was around when Floofy, Guan, and Yotaka were like, hey, let's edit this thing. And I was like, alright, well, hey, Jose, can you know, like, can I help you do whatever? Because he had already been hacking Zero for a year already by then.
Right.
So, like, I was there because I had made this server. Like, that's literally why. I had made a Discord server, and they were all on it. Like, not because of any particular anything other than that. And knowing the people, you know, like I knew Floofy and Vaughn and Yutaka, you know? But like, where did I know them from? By happenstance, you know?
Right.
Just meeting them in an IRC channel, really.
I shitpost on the Falcord for long enough back in like 20 whatever.
That's basically it. You were on the same server.
I was shitposting, and you guys were like, "Hey, want to do cursors for us?"
I mean, you were doing like lots of Mishi drawings and stuff, and so. Like,
I know, it's just such a stupid, like, of all the ways that happened. It's so silly, but years later, there we go.
Yeah, years later, here you are. Getting to see this game that you worked on now be released in official capacity.
It really was like two different avenues too. Like, Geofront happened because I well, at least for me, because I was in the right place with regards to the server and stuff. But like after that, you know, I was getting more and more involved in that, and of course, I was always interested in the technical side of things, and I think I actually wanted to test CS3 or something, right? Because I heard about NISA's closed betas that they frequently did. And, you know, they've been doing apparently since like 2018. And in 2020, I signed up for the first beta test, like, oh, there's no way I'm gonna get into this. it was Alliance Alive HD that was a PC port from PSP. No, not PSP, from 3DS or something. It was not a great game, but it was a game, and I beta tested that, and like from there, I kept applying to NISA betas, and like eventually CS3 came around for testing, and so I was doing that. I'm like, oh wow. So I got to know like the guy who runs those, and now he's my boss. So like a lot of things have happened since then, but
Yeah, funny how these things work out.
Fate works in mysterious ways.
Sure it does. Also, hello, Mac and Sean.
But, like-
Welcome to the stream.
hello.
So I guess another thing I wanted to ask you guys, as you're looking back at this game right now and just kind of seeing what may have remained intact from your guys' version, is there anything you wish you could kind of go back and change or like re-edit to be better or whatever for this game?
All of it? I mean, I don't know, man. Like I said, it's like looking back at your old art project where you're like, oh god.
Yeah.
And anything that's kind of a vaguely cringy thing that like, hey, someone thought that was cool. But at the same time, like I look at it with more fresh eyes than Ada, because I didn't really work on the scenario text as much, right? But hey, if you like end this cutscene and like open the menus, like you'll see touches of non-scenario that is definitely what I wrote.
Yeah, I mean, to be more specific, I haven't looked entirely. I've heard Sunshine Agnes is still mostly the same. I would definitely re-edit that whole thing. I'd never done anything like that at the time, and I had no idea what I was doing.
Oh yeah, Sunshine Agnes, like, oh, by the way, I put that up on the wiki, so the final version is there if you want to read it.
I'll have to look at it at some
The
point.
NISA version.
I'd redo that whole thing in a heartbeat.
Oh, right, yeah.
I don't think it's bad. I don't like.
Oh, yeah.
You know, most.
I actually got to see like by editing the wiki, like basically on release day, I was like, I got to see exactly what changed because the wiki's diff tells you as you're going through. It's like, oh, interesting. So it's really fascinating to look at, but I don't know.
There's not a lot, like, I would say in the game that I, like, just burn it down, don't, cleanse your eyes, bleach your brain a little bit. No, for the most part, it's like, we made the best decisions we could at the time, and I don't really regret any of it, but, with hindsight, it's like, no, we definitely, like, re-edit the whole game differently.
Yeah, if you want a book that I probably would cringe at and don't want to look at, it's Merc and the Witch. That's mine. But yeah, I think it's fine. I imagine they did it justice. I just don't want to look at it.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Every time I look at a shot on a TV show or a movie that I worked on, and I'm just like, from years ago, and I'm just like, oh, this could have been handled so much better.
And yes, like the Saint and the Wolf also, and like the half of sort of back alley, but I think Ada helped a lot with that because I don't know.
I didn't edit it. I didn't do anything with that.
No, Kata.
Oh, yeah, Kata. I heard Ada. My bad. Pruna and Lena Lee I would have edited differently, but I also didn't think that text was going to be final when I edited it, so...
Yeah, they definitely kept it. They punched it up. They kept it punched up. They kept all the stuff that was like really off the walls, like that, and the Mei Ling, who's hello.
Oh really?
Well, that was their our initial release of Zero had.
And not that we did it because of them, but it's also they kept it because of them, I guess. So enjoy.
In the initial release of the Zero patch, Mei Ling was like fairly generic child, Just hello, normal sounding.
Right.
But Cold Steel 3 had styled her to be more like hello, that type of noise.
Right, the cutesy kid. Hello, hello.
Yeah, so when we went back to do the 1.1 patch, we had we wanted to go back and hit some of those NPCs to get them in line with the rest of the series better. And it was like, how do we write Mei Ling? And what ended up happening, I ran all of Mei Ling's dialogue through an uwu generator. And then edited that into something that was not, that you didn't want, so you didn't want to gouge your eyes out.
Holy hell, that's amazing.
Yeah, they definitely toned it down though, like to make sure that things weren't like words weren't
unbearable, unbearable to read. It's horrible. I think that's still living in the margins somewhere of some file.
Oh wow, that is absolutely hilarious. I guess that leads me to another question. What were some of the favorite parts that you guys worked on that you were really excited to do? Again, it's like some dialogue that you were like really were excited to edit.
Let's see. Some of my favorite stuff I ever worked on. Let's see. I really love Armorica Village. It's one of the first things I worked on in Scenario. I think it's just a fun place. Like I like a lot of the NPCs. They get up to some fun stuff. I think most of their stories are pretty like good in terms of like being continuous and stuff. Wrote some big quests in there that were fun. But my favorite content that I worked on was the final dungeon for sure. For Azure.
Oh yeah, where everything just kind of starts coming together and wrapping up.
I did. So that was a very collaborative piece of writing because
I remember the discussions, but I wasn't as involved.
So Zerker was a very hype-driven editor. Like if he was excited about a place, it would get edited quickly, and if it was not, if he wasn't that excited, it probably wouldn't get done. So like when we started on Azure, Zerker like jumped in and I think edited the final dungeon, and then I don't know if he did anything else. He might. I feel bad. I might be misremembering, but I know he like jumped on that immediately. That was like the first thing he did.
You know what's even crazier? He did that for Zero too. I mean, he did a lot more of Zero, but he also went in and jumped into the final dungeon.
It's like if it was hype, he was down. That was his thing. Everything else was a pretext to do that cool fun thing. So he did that first pass of the final dungeon like within the first like weeks of the project being a thing, and then much later, like 6 months plus later, I came in and I did a pass of it to kind of put everything back into tone with the rest of the game, since I had worked on a lot more of it. And then even later, Scott would come back in and kind of comb over my stuff, and because that was during his big pass of the entire game. There was when we started testing, Scott started at the beginning of the game and did a polish pass through the entire game, playing it live, which was insane and ridiculous, and I still can't believe he did that because he was killing himself to do that.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Insane. He was at that for like 2 or 3 months straight, every day, like 8 hours.
Hey, look, there's a graphic. That's something I directed.
Not even 8 hours a day. It was probably closer to like 14 hours.
I mean, I didn't obviously do any Photoshop, but.
But yeah, so the final dungeon has a very big, warm place in my heart.
It's like, hey, Sorcerian, that's 10 game game. Make sure it's that kind of stuff. Go down the list of graphics and make sure it's all lined up.
So, I guess when you guys were editing, like, did you guys kind of assign who did what based on, like, the chapters or the locations? Or was it just like, hey, has anyone touched this part of the game? No? Can I? type thing?
So you can't really do it by chapter, which is like the way that you would normally think to do it, right? Because everything's location based. So if I have, I don't know, if I have the SSS building, and I look at it, it's going to have text from every single chapter in it.
Right.
So you can't really divide by chapter, so you kind of have to divide by location. So I believe Arvin was on most of Crossbell City. Zerker was doing some dungeons, and then I did towns. Towns being
Everything outside of the city that's like a
so like
city-like thing, like Armorica.
Armorica mains, the gates, that type of thing.
The cathedral for whatever reason.
Scott worked on a lot of the event stuff to start, and then I didn't actually work on the hospital. That was something Scott did. But and then it would be if people are, I think, yeah, the hospital is its own location, multiple locations.
Oh yeah, because you have like outside the hospital and then like inside the hospital and then like each individual room inside the hospital. I guess
some
those
of
are all like
some of them get lumped together and some of them don't. I think all the I'd have to look if the floors are all their own sheet or not. But I think Scott helped finish the city, and then as things start getting finished and people may or may not be getting burnt out, it's just kind of a picking up the pieces of going back and getting all the stuff that we didn't do before.
Right. So then, did you guys also kind of like write per character as well? Like, I know that Arvin in particular wrote a lot of Randy's dialogue, at least for Zero. I'm not sure if that may have changed in Azure's process.
It doesn't. We can't really like specifically write for characters necessarily, right? Because it's like it's all chronological in the sheets. So it's like if you wanted to just do a Randy pass, like you would be skipping a lot of everyone else. I think it's certain writers informed character voices more than others. Like, you know, Arvin has a good Randy. Like, he had a good way of bringing out traits that we found fun for Randy as a character. So if you were stuck on your Randy, you might go read some of Arvin's Randy, for example. Or Scott was really big on Noel. So if you wanted to figure out how to write Noel, go jump to one of the sheets Scott did and read how he wrote Noel, and then go back to what you're doing and see if you can work that out. Typically on actual local projects, you would have a character Bible where you would, you would include basic like a summary of who they are and what they're about and their like background and stuff, and then some quotes, and you would use that to tune yourself to like what you're supposed to be editing. But we didn't do that.
Would you do that if you were able to go back and redo it?
It worked for us to not do that because we were all crazy people and we all were very into.
We all were the like, even like the people who weren't really working on the text. Like, we were familiar with the games, like all sorts of the parts of the games, and
we had all played the games before. We knew all the characters. We knew what they were, about. Like, maybe some of the minutia of the plot we'd have to like double check with each other, but like we were pretty well in tune with what it was supposed to be. This process would not work on a real Loke project where it's like sometimes you get people shuffled in that don't know what they're doing, or this guy needed to fill it.
Such a thing as a Bible,
right? It's Tuesday and Brian needs to fill in, and you need to give Brian your material so he knows how to edit today. So a lot of this process only worked because we were crazy people who knew everything about the game already.
I mean, hey, this entire thing, both Zero and Azure, was a very crazy project to undertake. Like, the amount of polish that you guys put into all this, just like from the dialogue to the technical features to everything, really. It was just the whole
it's like we shot the moon and somehow hit it.
Yeah.
What the heck?
Yeah, you guys really came together and really produced probably some of the best fan translations that have ever existed.
There are definitely some crazy ones out there I've seen, but it seems like a lot of the ones we see, like, hey, there's a nice like there's this group of like fan translators that have been like tackling like so many PS1 or PS2 games lately, and it's just like, hey, look, another one. But like it seems like they're really technical, you know, like they have one thing that they do, and that's hack games. So hey, I mean that's really really awesome to see in the world, but like I don't know, it's just how we managed to get every one of these points, the technical, the like editing, the like everybody actually managing to stay together for a year, you know?
It was a perfect storm, really. Like it, I think people, moan and groan about all sorts of things in the Falcom fandom, but we have passionate people who really care about this stuff that wanted to come together and make something cool.
For sure, and that definitely showed.
And this is the product of, a lot of love.
Absolutely. So Klingy is asking a question about how you guys went about characters addressing each other and like approaching the Japanese cultural nuances of their dialogue.
It kind of ends up being more of a holistic thing. Like obviously you have your conversations where it's like, oh, should I call you Lloyd or Lloyd-san? In Japanese, where you kind of have to figure it out, but it depends on the character a lot. It depends on the scene, it depends on the character. It requires, a little bit more creative writing sometimes, because it's like, it doesn't always work, and you don't want your Mr. Lloyds of the world and things like that, if you can help it.
Good old Mr. Lloyd.
And that's not a dig, it's just, these are really hard things to not make awkward. You kind of just need to, you really have to, read the scene and figure out ways, to make it work. I wish I could give you better examples off the top of my head. It's been 3 years, and I don't really remember exactly how we managed each one.
I mean, there was that article recently, literally talking about that one translation choice that has to be a choice.
Yeah, about the soldiers and how
Yes.
And,
getting referred in a different way that's very Japanese way.
I remember having that conversation with Scott about what to do, and I think we might have asked Shanji, who's also in the chat, about that. Or maybe Kat, I don't recall who we asked, but yeah, no, there's sometimes you just have to figure out. A lot of it is analyzing intent, right? Like, what are we supposed to get out of this as readers, and will this mean anything to the English reader versus the Japanese reader? And simplifying for that, where it's for that lost in localization thing that you're referencing, it's what in effect changes for the reader? Nothing. Or we change, how we're referring to each other, but it doesn't actually change the ranks of anyone or something like that. I don't. Again, the context. The context is 3 years out, so I don't quite remember everything.
Right. So then, did you ever feel that maybe when you were editing some of the dialogue, they may have kind of gone too far and may have strayed away from the original intent?
Our guiding light was the previous localizations, right? We had a lot of content to draw on from Xseed and from Nisa as to when to push, when to pull. Because obviously, when you're editing for a commercialized product, it's a little different than fan translation, but that's kind of how we were treating it. You want to make the characters lovable, right? You want them to be people you care about, because a lot of narrative stakes depend on these types of things, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't really feel that we pushed too, there may be some lines, again, obviously, that we would go back and change given the chance, but generally I think that our punch-ups were things that I'm proud of even now. I think we brought a lot of fun to the party, maybe in places that played it a little more safe at times in the Japanese.
Yeah, I just remember some of Waz's dialogue in particular was just such a riot to read at times.
Oh yeah, he is really smooth. I love how he's portrayed in the Azure release.
Yeah, Waz is probably one of my favorites in the Crossfell duology, so just his dialogue in particular was just fantastic to read back when I played with your patch.
Yeah, you'll never please everyone when it comes to stuff like this, but you know, we made our creative decisions and we stuck to them. And consistency is important.
Absolutely. So I guess this like in regards to consistency, how did you feel about writing returning characters from the past games like Kevin?
I'm sure everybody will have a field day with that.
It can be hard. It can be hard to write characters that you haven't had to write before, because like you can't always get into the same headspace of where they were coming from. Like you can definitely go back and like reread all their dialogue and try to find like, oh, in this situation they reacted like this, so maybe I should make them react like that, right? It's a balancing act, and I don't have a great answer for you. Unfortunately, you kind of just have to feel it out.
Right.
One of the characters I had to write was Narcisse, one of the great fisher guys. The fishermen, or what the hell are they called?
Oh, the
Imperial Fishing Guild, or whatever their name. Gosh,
the Elite Four of the Fishermen Guild.
Yes.
of the freaking.
So those guys are characters for sure.
Yeah, they're characters, and one of them is
in many ways.
Narcisse was in Cold Steel 2, I believe, written by Nick Colucci, if I'm recalling correctly, from Xseed. His speech pattern is ridiculous. It's like, I am the most beautificent caster of all the lands and things like that. So it's just this very out there diction and making up new words because he speaks like fully in katakana in Japanese. So just a total mess of a character, and having to dissect that style, years after the fact of the original being written without being able to ask Nick why he wrote it like that.
Right.
I mean, you could like infer that like it was done because just writing it in like
sure, but
it's probably sounded racist.
How do I match the mannerisms to make sure it's
right, of course.
That if you read the characters back to back for whatever reason, would I know that they're the same characters? Yeah, it can be challenging, but it's also a fun exercise in getting into the head of people who have worked on the series before.
For sure. So I guess in that case, if you were really stuck, would you kind of like also ask some of your other editors, like Scott or Zerker, like, hey, how would you handle writing this? Or like, can I get your input on what you think about this?
Oh yeah, it's a massive collaborative process. There's a lot of times where it would be like, there was a period of a couple of months there, because we were in the middle of the pandemic, where neither Scott and I had jobs, and we would just sit in a Discord call like all day, sometimes not talking for like 10 minutes at a time, but then it'd be like, would Randy say yada yada? Oh, maybe more like this or that type of a thing. So it was definitely a collaborative process of making sure everything made sense, or there was a lot of, is this too far?
Right.
And then some reeling back.
Yeah. I can imagine.
There's some very funny things that didn't make it into the game. That didn't deserve to be there.
Oh yeah, even in Zero, like I remember Arvin talking about, I think he even posted this online somewhere, and people took it as fact, even though it's not. The whole melty thing. Remember that?
Yes. Yeah, people got mad about it.
That's why I kind of like avoided posting like memetic things that were not going to be in the game, because people took it too seriously.
Yeah. Dealing with the community was not always fun.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, the blowback you guys got from just like the bro line that Arvin tossed into Zero, I imagine.
It's complicated.
It's even
right?
more complicated. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty complicated. I would say, like, I don't know. I feel like at some point I even argued against it before it went into the game, but once we like all confirmed and agreed on it, we're like, you know what? We all agree on this, like just move forward, like it wasn't there was never like sense that anyone was, mad about it after the fact. It was just the community
Right.
drumming up drama, really.
People like to get mad about things, and it from the trenches. Sometimes it was very frustrating because if you are us working on this like 10 hours a day for months of our lives, it can be frustrating to see people get angry about this or that. But in the end, forget most of it.
Right. You just stick with your guns, and as long as you guys are proud of the work you did, then that's all that really counts, right?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Is like we all were so much as like trying to work together to make this thing, and even if we're not all directly involved with a lot of the different processes, like I don't think Ada thing knew like a lot of the technical stuff that might be going on, like whether or not we did this or that in the settings menu or whatever. Like it, but we all like look at, like, I always looked at the editing and was like, well, yeah, I understand why they did this, right? Like, as long as we all understand why this choice was made, we can all like move forward and say it's collectively ours.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Move on.
Yeah. So now that we're here at the end of the prologue, I think that'll just about do it for the stream.
Yeah, what Shanzi says, absolutely. We, at the time, especially with Zero, it was like we were doing this out of passion. There was no reward. There was no sense that they would ever get localized.
Oh yeah,
right.
Especially
I mean, that was the whole point. Was we wanted to provide the closest thing to an official loc that we could, because we never thought it would happen.
On all fronts. On every front.
And then one miracle after another happened, and here we are.
Would you say that we're many fronts of a geofront? Anyway.
Yeah, so I think we're about here at the end of the stream. Any last questions from the viewers? If you guys want to ask anything, Addaberry and Ribose while they're around?
While we wait, I'm just going to complain very briefly about the opening of the game.
Please do.
Oh no.
It's not super serious. No. What I'm going to complain about is I did a little bit of editing for the video of the
I know where you're going.
So in there's a shot where these petals of flowers like fly across the screen, and then the Azure logo fades in for the first time. That is the shot that I edited, because there is no clean footage of that anywhere that has the flowers flying across, that doesn't have one of the either the Chinese or Japanese logo on it. And I spent like a week painstakingly editing that frame by frame, like restoring parts of the flowers and clearing out the old logo so we could put ours in. It was such a pain in the ass.
Dude, that's part of what I do.
Something you'll never forget.
That's part of what I do professionally for some of like the shows and TV movies that I have to work on, where I have to like just remove stuff and then like paint back things in to fill it up to get myself what we call in the business a clean plate, and it can get really, really tedious and troublesome at times.
I'm not a video editor. I did that all in my Krita, which is like a Photoshop clone. Like I did it frame by frame, and that was a nightmare.
Oh yeah,
my God.
That sounds like a nightmare.
You need a powerful computer like the one I now have.
But yeah, my little fun fact: it doesn't look like anyone has any questions, unfortunately.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
guess.
I really want people to appreciate the done scenario things that are still in these official releases because I don't know, it's just like the consistency of the like item attributes and the skill attributes. Like, pay attention. Somebody had to go through and make sure that all made sense, and
Read the
work
Absolutely.
with
newspapers. Read
the
the books.
yeah, yeah, and look at the like help notebooks and graphics. I painstakingly
Oh
figured out
God,
exactly what it should say in all of those, and
those
Sosarian, of course, edited all of those.
those
and
notebooks are
then
crazy. Sorcerian did so much work out of this. Was absolutely crazy.
yeah, I love him for it, but like it's just like just making sure, hey, make sure that all the arts say the right like values so that you can just easily open your quartz thing and do the same thing, that
Oh,
kind of stuff.
well, we do have a question from Stargrasper asking about like now the Crossbow games are out and that whole area for Geofront is done. If Geofront is working on anything nowadays,
Oh yeah, they are.
I
which
mean, things have definitely slowed down, but we're still working on Dinosaur, and at Magfest this January we announced that we're working on uh, White Witch, the first of the Gagarv games, which is kind of the prequel, not prequel to the spiritual prequel series to Trails, if you wanted to put it that way.
Yeah, yeah, there are lots of similarities. Like when you like I think I don't know. Ed is not probably going to post it because it's full of spoilers, but there's so many references to Gagarv, and there are memes about it. Like everything in Trails is named because it's that was actually in Gagarv. It's like
Yes, there's an impossibly deep hole of references all over the place, and for the most part, I had played Gagarv by the time I think Azure was out, so most of those are preserved as well as I could. Um, oh, we
I
also
mean,
did the Dragon Slayer board game.
oh yeah. There's all the we have a bunch of smaller projects too, like Dragon Slayer board games out. The Computer the Golf is out. If you want to go play a fun little
yeah,
golf game that takes
Computer the Golf.
maybe
yeah,
half
let's
an hour.
go.
You can just like speed through it and see Falcom's history. Hopefully, planning on getting other Falcom classics out, but like Computer the Golf is the one.
Uh,
The other thank you, Shanji. Yeah, I know he loves them.
that's great. So I saw another question from Klingy asking if there was any characters you guys didn't like editing or writing for.
Let's see. Scott didn't like Yona. Um, because I
Jonas
remember,
Stokes?
yes, there were a few because there were just times that
He's
he
a
was
brat.
just not fun to. Yeah, I
Oh
do.
yeah,
I have a distinct memory of a
absolutely.
time where I was editing a sheet and Scott shoots me a DM and he's like, "Can you come edit Yona in the scene for me? I don't want to do it." So I did.
I didn't know about that. That's hilarious. And it makes
um,
sense too. He's such a vet in some scenes. Holy crap!
I know I did that with I don't know how you say her name. I'm so sorry. Muriel.
Oh,
I don't.
Murray.
Me,
Yeah, yeah,
me,
yeah.
I don't know how
me,
you say her name.
yep,
I'm sorry.
yep.
There was a time where it's just like I got to one of her scenes and I'm just like, I don't. This feels really boring. I don't know what to do. Scott, just fix it.
Yeah, I really think that I don't know. Please look forward to Reverie. I don't know, man. It's really cool how
Let's see who
character.
else. Who else is annoying? Most of the characters are fine. Shirley is a character you can't edit every day. Sometimes that takes a
Oh
bit of
yeah,
you gotta
Yeah.
you have to sleep on that one. Um,
I feel like Ren is also a tough one to edit. I don't know if it's something you wouldn't want to though.
yeah, Ren. That's just one that you always feel like anytime Ren is on screen, it's like handle with care. But um, she doesn't. Thankfully, she doesn't show up that often in Azure. So um, let's see. Ellie is a surprisingly hard character to edit.
Oh yeah, I feel like that's a hey Zerker, get it Zerker on the line. At least it was in Zero.
It just words. Holy crap. Lloyd,
Well,
Lloyd and Ellie being fairly similar characters in terms of like diction and tone can sometimes run up against each other. You have to find the small differences that make them like stand apart. So that can be that one was a little bit challenging. There were definitely times where it'd be like, does this LA line sound make sense, or like not sound too much like Lloyd, or
Right.
One of the challenges, this is not always an attainable goal, but one of the challenges is if you took off the nameplates, would you be able to tell who's speaking?
Magenta Void says something about Durante and Destructor. Yeah, they're part of PH3. I don't know what you're talking about.
So yeah, it's like if you ever like, one of the best ways to know if your character writing is going well, take off the nameplates and see if you can tell who's who.
Yeah, that's actually a great way to test if your writing's on point or not.
It's not always attainable. Like there are like, especially with simple sentences.
Sometimes it's just like this scene's not really that important. It's just this explanatory one for the gameplay reasons, and you just have to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't always work, but that I feel like that is an ideal that is always worth pushing for when you're editing.
Right. Yeah, that's a pretty cool idea that I feel like I should try if I'm like trying to read a text and be like, hey, can I figure out who's speaking?
Yeah.
There are a lot of words in English, and you can say things a lot of different ways. So sometimes it's good for beating. It is very comfortable to write things exactly how you would normally just to say things. So getting out of your box and writing things a little differently is not always the easiest.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and it also seems like that's one of the reasons that you sometimes see in the industry people like saying they edit based on the like individual characters instead of a whole like scene, and it sounds weird to me, but
I mean, you need to do both.
Happening.
I don't know. I feel like it also depends if you're working on voice acting stuff, because like.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I guess voice acting is a big factor that I didn't really think about.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we didn't have to worry about that at all with this project, but in my future working on voice acting stuff, it changes the game a lot.
Oh yeah, I can.
I'm sure.
I can only imagine how the process that goes into.
I've seen Hatsu's tweets about the matter about CS3 and 4 and stuff, and even CS1 and 2. Just I've seen a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a whole different beast in the whole localization process.
Yeah, I meant more specifically for editing. If you have the exact identical scene, but you have it dubbed versus not dubbed, I feel like you do need to write it differently sometimes.
Right, yeah. I guess because having to say a sentence out loud sometimes will affect it instead of having to read it internally.
Yeah, and just how long are they talking, like various things. There's a lot of factors, like flow matters a lot more, where sometimes you can get away with some like not so great flow in written form. It sounds horrible in when it's spoken aloud. Yeah, a lot of different considerations. I also do wish that Crosswell had been dubbed, but it's expensive.
Yeah.
I get it. It's just unfortunate.
Yeah, especially with games these old.
I would jump at doing the games a third time if we can get it done, but it's not.
You never know. Maybe.
Call me. We'll do the dub.
Yeah, that's what we do. We like do a fan dub of the official release because one of the reasons that like Geofront never wanted to do it, like one of the primary reasons, is we couldn't feasibly get the original actors, right? So it's like this is never going to happen with the original actors, and it wouldn't make sense to have fans like trying to pretend to be Robbie Damon or something, right? It's like none of us really wanted that. We wanted an official Dove, you know, in the same way that we wanted an official quality feeling product, even if we couldn't have official when we were working on the text, right?
Absolutely.
Like,
All right. Well, I think it's time for us to draw our winner for the giveaway.
Woo!
So let's see who it is. Winner! It's Klingy! Oh, Klingy! I already know for a fact that you have Azure, so I'm gonna have to re-roll.
oh, is Clay someone you know?
Yeah, Klingy's a guy I talk with occasionally, so. I literally saw him play through the beginning of Azure like last week, so I know for a fact that he has Azure. Alright, so let's go for our second winner!
Is it literally
Sanji!
just who's in the chat?
Shanji, do you have a copy of Azure?
I sent him one. You don't
Yeah, I was
need to
gonna
do
say, I
that.
feel like
Just
he does.
never mind. Like,
Okay, well, I guess that means we get to draw another winner.
Third time's the charm.
Guys, you don't have to type any enter command or whatever for this. You just have to be around and chatting, and the bot will draw one randomly. Alright, so let's go! Third winner is going to be Mac the Knife! Mac, do you have a copy of Azure?
I feel like there's going to be a problem. If everybody watching
I feel
the
like
stream
that
has the
will
game,
be a problem. We are going to find someone who does not have a copy of this game. The second giveaway winner is going to be a real problem. Since I gotta find someone who does not have a copy of either game. Okay, Mac has a copy. Going fourth time. I swear, this reminds me of one of Sean Chiplock's streams where he was trying to give away a copy of one of the Cold Steel games, and like every time a winner was drawn, everyone would say, I already have a copy, until someone finally did not have a copy, but they didn't have any system to play it on, and then Sean was just like, okay, whatever, and just like gave the person a system to play on as well. God damn it, we drew back again. Okay.
Does anyone not have...
Again, what is this? Mac, are you cheating the system? Shanji again, holy hell. Yo, bot, you can pick someone else. WeWare! Do you have a copy of Azure? Okay, perfect. Do you want a copy of Azure? Okay, WeWare, I will get in touch with you about which system you want it on, so look forward to that message. It's time for our second giveaway, which in honor of Scott's memory, who unfortunately did pass away last year, I will be giving away a copy of both Zero and Azure right now, for a themed copy of that. So, let's see who is going to win that.
random question.
Yes.
Was WeWare in Floofy's chat? Because I remember that name.
Probably. Klingy! Well, Klingy, I know that you have a copy of both the Crossbell games. So we're gonna draw that again. Lady, do you have a copy of Zero and Azure officially?
The question... Wait, hold on. I have a question. Is this for Steam or...
Yes, it is for Steam. That's just the easiest
You
way
can't
for
do
me
it for consoles, right?
It'd be complicated. Well, maybe I could give it away for consoles as well. Steam is just the easiest way for me to give it to people.
That's fair. You're just... Gifting on Steam is great.
I did specify that the winner of
yeah, I know that. So. I just couldn't remember.
Yeah, but hey, lady, do you want a copy on Steam? Don't worry, we're your version of Azure. I will discuss with you. But okay, I guess I could be open with it. Okay, lady won again. Lady, you're cheating the system.
Who's paying off Nightbot?
WeWare, you already won a version of Azure, so I don't know, man. We're gonna just try again until someone here does not have a copy of either. Well, we'll see.
At this point, we might as well just like buy everybody who doesn't have one. It's probably not
Okay,
that many.
Heat Mike, you have won a copy of both Zero and Azure. Do you have those games? And if not, would you like both Zero and Azure on Steam?
Holding my breath.
Promising sign.
Promising, very promising. I just need the confirmation. Do you have these games on Steam, and if not, would you like them?
Could cut the tension
Like-
like a knife.
Very.
Is that your final answer?
I just
mean-
need confirmation on this. Okay, cool. You're gonna take them. Sweet. All right. Well, then that will take care of our giveaway. So, Addaberry Ribose, do you have any last things you want to say to the chat? Any last parting words?
Thank you for having us. Enjoy Zero and Azure. They're amazing games.
Enjoy mission.
Enjoy Mishi.
I mean, I guess so.
Yeah, no, I mean, enjoy good video games. Take it easy. I will not plug myself because I'm not that interesting.
Well, I was gonna ask. Hey, you go ahead, plug yourselves if you guys wanna. Where that people can find you if you wanna show yourselves, by all means.
I'm on Twitter at Addaberry, but I mean, you're not getting much. I'll talk about things I work on as they come out, so it might be a while. But
yeah, I don't know. I just use Twitter to retweet art. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'd run the Discord server, but I don't know how many people actually want to go there. So, you can find me on Discord if you actually want to talk. I'll chat there.
we're
it's
pretty open books.
Ribose. If you are on the Geofront server, that's probably the best place to talk about Geofront stuff to us.
Yeah, we do have the public server, which is...
yeah, I always forget you guys had that open.
We don't talk about it a whole lot.
Yeah,
mostly...
I think I'm pretty lukewarm on it, but it's whatever now. I'm over it. It's cool.
There's a pretty decent bucket to put all of the tech complaints and questions in for Zero and Azure, but
Right.
Yeah, and that will probably be the case for White Witch and Dinosaur too. When we put them up,
Yeah,
we'll
that's
have
good.
Hey,
And
find all
good
the
old
tech
computer
storage for us.
golf.
Oh,
Here's the
like
golf.
5 of them.
yeah,
Oh yeah. If you actually find a problem with that game, that would be impressed. But it's not a very big game. But hey, you should play it. Anyway, I think that we chose the right path with Zero and Azure. I'm very happy with it. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me for this stream. The things you guys talked about was like really enlightening, and I don't think I can ever look at Mei Ling now ever again without knowing that you ran her dialogue through an uwu generator. That's hilarious. that is probably the best fact I learned today.
So are you talking about Mei Wing?
Mei Wing?
Mei Wing? All right. Well, also, that's gonna be our goodbye screen. So thank you so much everybody for coming on out. I hope you all had yourselves a good time here on the stream. Once again, the art that you see on screen was done by my friend Masky Arts. You could always hit up for a commission of your own. And we will be back on Saturday with more Cold Steel 3. And if you're not gonna be tuning in for that, then I hope you all have yourselves a good remainder of the week and a weekend.
Oh, did you switch back to set art? Oh, I've been sitting here paused.
Oh.
I just saw the Azure title screen. I was so confused. Anyway,
yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. Anyways, that'll take care of it for tonight. Thank you all so much for coming out. This was a blast. So hopefully we get to do another type of stream like this again sometime, some point. Don't know when, don't know with who, don't know with where, but maybe in the future. All you gotta do is tune in to find out. So, yeah. Have a good night, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you for having us. See you, everyone.
Yeah. Bye.